My name is Sean Riley. I'm a mechanic. Damn good mechanic, and I love my job. No, forget it. I adore your job. I am number 2 on the work floor in Olfson Motors, a leading Mercedes-Benz dealership. I am 28 years old. My height is 188 centimeters, and my weight is 92 kilograms. First number auto cruiser. He is 78 years old. I think he's still on Tiger's work in World War II. I've been married for almost 5 years. Her name is Stephanie Nee Downs. She is 26 years old. 168 centimeters tall, long blonde hair, 34B breasts, toned legs, face a pure angel. We met at community college while I was studying electrical engineering. She studied at Mrs. Riley. I thought I was on my way to big money, and I thought that she loved me. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps before going to college. Trained as a mechanic for diesel and heavy vehicles. I liked it. I was happy. I met Stephanie. I was happy. The sex was amazing. I was happy. We got married. I thought we were both happy. It turned out that she wanted more, and she used her secretarial skills and beautiful appearance to get it. Sound familiar? She got a job as a secretary, then got several promotions until she became personal assistant and executive assistant company owner, Richard Olfson. I was proud of her and her accomplishments. She was my wife, after all. I probably wouldn't be so proud if I knew the whole truth. Yes, she had sex, she had pleasure, she had her needs met, she had other types of sex, whatever it took to climb the career ladder. Everything happened on Thursday. We only had one car, and we went to work together. She earned good money, a little smaller than me, and we bastards at home. We took precautions because she and I couldn't take pills. So, at lunch I asked, "Shall we have lunch together?" "I can't," she answered. "We're having a dealer association luncheon at the Hilton today, but I'll be back in time and we can hug in the evening." Hugs versus sandwiches from Jimmy John's. No options. Agreed, baby. During one of our meetings, an unpleasant surprise occurred. The reliability of the protection was not up to par. We were both a little tipsy and didn't think much of it. 2 months have passed, and I have completely forgotten about it. But Stephanie is not. It turned out that my genetics were working at their best, and now she had a baby on the way. But I didn't know. I was happy, remember? And here she is now. She told your lover, Mr. Richard Olfson, and he was born with a brilliant idea. You see, Olfson was sterile. He was ill as a child, mumps and scarlet fever, but forgot to say that about women. They were married 10 years. To him 42, to her 34. She wanted children, and he wanted to walk. He falsified medical documents where it was stated that he's fine. Her doctor said that she's fine, just need to keep trying. In the end, she believed, what's the problem in it? She was a decent woman, and her husband seemed caring and understanding, so I just continued to suffer and blame myself. Olfson continued to have sex with everyone who I didn't mind. She fell into depression. And then he offered a deal. "You're pregnant, you're 11 years younger than me, you're beautiful and very talented in bed. So why don't you improve your life? Divorce Sean, marry me. I will divorce my wife, marry you, adopt your child, and we will live like in a fairy tale. Money, cars, expensive dresses, jewelry, mansions, yachts, travel, everything you want." She agreed. Actually, the same dinner, which was supposed to start at 11 o'clock, ended at 12:15. And then they discussed the details of the divorce for 4 hours, signed papers, and had sex. On the way back to the office, their car was in a terrible accident. Luckily, they were in Mercedes-class Maybach, one of the safest cars. To misfortune, she gave him pleasure, and there were no seat belts. Truck drove into them from the side, the car turned over 10 times, and she fell upside down into a concrete ditch. Olfson flew out of the car and died instantly. Stephanie stayed inside and was degenerate. She is in critical condition. I didn't know anything. For me, she was simply my favorite wife. To him, certainly. And so, 17:30, I finish my work suspecting nothing. By speakerphone, they call me to the boss's office. I arrive, and there, Ernie Marchetti, my boss. Laney from the HR department. My best friend Salvator. And a police officer. Badly. Sean, sit down. We need to tell you something. He has a break. Sean, your wife was in an accident. Stephanie is in critical condition at Park Lane Memorial. The officer will take you there. Laney will follow. Sal will take your pickup and stay with you. You are being released from work for an indefinite period. Now go to her. I didn't know it was possible to collapse in a chair while sitting upright. I was shocked. I don't remember the trip to the hospital. They say that the patrol flew on Warp 6. I met doctors. Dr. Carson, the head of intensive care, sat me down. Sean, your wife is in critical condition. She's in a coma. She lost her right leg and right arm. She has a severe traumatic brain injury, 5 broken ribs, a broken nose, a lost right eye, severe blood loss. But the child is completely okay. What the hell did he just say? Celeste Olfson. Celeste Olfson was the complete opposite of Stephanie. 5 feet 8 inches tall, killer long legs, 38C breasts, small waist, narrow hips, incredible ass, long silky black hair, and a cute face. Not a dazzling beauty, but very sweet. She wore black librarian-style glasses and looked very reserved. She had an MBA from Wharton College. Now she was a widow who would run a successful car dealership. It took about 2 weeks to pull herself together, and by then she already had the accident report, the medical report from the emergency room, and a summary of the entire accident scene. From that moment on, she started calling Stephanie that damn prostitute. Celeste Olfson was the opposite of Stephanie Riley in every way. She was smart and generally kind. But she was angry. She entered her office and sat down. Pressing the selector button, she turned to her new secretary, Heidi. Heidi, please call Laney from HR to see me. She mulled over the situation as she waited for Laney to arrive. Soon a young employee from HR knocked, came in and said, "Did you call me, ma'am?" "Yes, Laney, have a seat. I want to talk to you and get honest answers. If you lie to me, you will be fired. If you're honest, to the best of your knowledge, everything will be fine. Did we understand each other?" Laney winced. "Yes, ma'am. I will try. What do you know about the love affairs of my late husband? Any rumors or facts?" She hesitated. "Ma'am, your husband tried to be careful, but his friend wasn't very careful. Rumor has it that his secretary did everything for him except shine his shoes. These are just rumors, but many girls here didn't like the way she treated her husband. He is a really good person, everyone loves him. And then this happened. He was simply killed. He is in the hospital every day, from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning, and then from 7 o'clock in the evening until closing. He reads to her, holds her hand, and there is also a child." Celeste raised her head sharply. "What?" she asked again. "Child. You didn't know? They are trying to keep her alive to give the baby a chance to grow to term, or at least to a safer period. She is 4.5 months pregnant. Did you really not know?" "No, I had no idea." Sean didn't know she was pregnant either. He was terrified. "This bastard, he can't conceive a child with me, but he impregnates his bitch." Celeste shook her head, clearing away the thoughts, and said, "Laney, I appreciate your honesty. Keep me posted on any rumors that may surface. Don't worry about anything anymore. Thank you." I pressed the intercom button as Laney left and told Heidi that the company's lawyer, Herschel Schmidt, would arrive in half an hour and should be taken straight to me. He was going to make sure that everything was in order with the transfer of control of the car dealership into my hands. Soon Heidi announced that Mr. Schmidt had arrived. "Show him out, please." Herschel Schmidt was a 50-year-old man, 6 feet 2 inches tall, weighing approximately 200 pounds. He played sports and was an Army veteran. However, he had a round face, thin-framed glasses, and a calm demeanor, which led people to mistake him for a simpleton. Married, 3 children, decent, but in business he is a real shark. He sat down opposite Celeste, and they began to discuss business. After about 2 hours, he sat back and said, "I think that's it for the transfer of control, Mrs. Olfson. Any other questions? Please call me Celeste. Sorry, Mrs. Olfson, but for professional reasons, I prefer to use only last names. This is my personal rule, no offense. Okay, Mr. Schmidt, I want to know if you could be my personal lawyer. I really like your integrity, and I need my own lawyer, separate from the corporate one. He looked at her for a few seconds and then asked, "Is there any special reason for this, ma'am?" Celeste hesitated a little and then asked, "Do you know anything about my husband's love affairs with his secretary?" "Yes, I know. I didn't like it. He had plans that I strongly disagreed with, and I told him so. He said he didn't care, and if I didn't support him, he would take the car dealership business away from our law firm. I was stalling for as long as I could and was about to stop working with him when the accident happened." She was slightly taken aback by this confession. "What do you mean?" she asked. Schmidt studied her for a while and then asked, "Have you seen the Red Book? I have no idea what you're talking about." He lowered his eyes and said, "There is a lock in the top left drawer of the desk. Open it, take out the vertical stand for papers. There is another bottom there. Remove it and take out the contents." I opened the center drawer, took the keys, and unlocked the top left drawer. There were a lot of things in there, including the aforementioned vertical stand. Before you take out the documents, think, what do you know about what your husband did? Do you really have any idea what he was like? In response, I pushed the police report, the medical report from the emergency room, and the complete accident file towards him. He glanced through the papers and returned them to me. "I'm not surprised, but there's something else. Now you can take out the contents of the box." I took out all the documents, then removed the stand. The false bottom had two detents that allowed it to move forward about an inch. I removed the bottom and pulled out two folders, a large manila envelope, and that red leather book with embossed Richard Olfson's personal journal. In the first folder, if I'm not mistaken, are your medical records, as well as fake versions of your and his data. He was going to use them to force you to accept his terms. Terms? Yes, he was going to divorce you. On the Monday after the accident, he wanted to force Stephanie to file for divorce from her husband. He should have received a summons right at work. Then she would have quit and left. She would stay in his apartment, which you probably didn't know about either, and practically disappear. He would then sue you, and after the divorce was finalized, he would marry her and voila, have a child that he would pass off as his. This is where I draw the line. I have some principles. I was going to anonymously warn you before the axe fell, but then the large envelope is the divorce decree. The other file is his medical records. You will notice that as a child, he suffered from mumps and scarlet fever, which made him completely infertile. He was still that scoundrel, madam, and I was quickly losing patience with him. I was completely shocked. I was humiliated. I was furious. That's a son of a bitch. Yes, madam, as you said, he answered calmly and handed me a few pages. These are the letters that I prepared for you. But due to the accident, they were no longer needed. Read the diary and we'll talk. He stood up and excused himself to go to the restroom. I pulled the notebook towards me and opened it. It started with a tirade against me. I was too controlling, I wanted children, I dreamed of a family life. And he didn't want all this, especially with problems associated with pregnancy and childbirth. So something had to change. My marriage was about to fail. He was going to destroy my marriage and another marriage to get what he wanted. This selfish, narcissistic bastard. I continued reading and discovered that a prenuptial agreement had been prepared for her, completely depriving her of everything except for the child, if it was a boy. It also stated that the child was considered her husband's son, not mine. This bastard was a real bastard. I was starting to enjoy talking about my late husband because it meant I could use every curse word I'd ever heard. Who was this mechanic? I needed to meet him. He seemed too good to be true. Did he know about his wife? Herschel returned to the room. Any questions, Mrs. Olfson? Definitely. I want you to become my lawyer, and I need to meet with this mechanic. No one is so kind and trusting. I picked up the phone and called the production floor. Ernie, shop manager. How can I help? Ernie, this is Mrs. Olfson. Is Sean Riley here today? Yes, madam, he is here every day. Any problems? No, no problem. Can you ask him to come to your office? I would like to meet him. Herschel raised his eyebrows and started to say something, but I raised my hand and shook my head. Yes, madam, give me 5 minutes. Okay, I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Herschel looked at me and said, Mrs. Olson, Mr. Riley doesn't know anything about this. I can't believe you would just dump all this information on the poor guy after what he's been through. And you are right, Mr. Schmidt. I myself have too many principles to do this, but I need to satisfy my curiosity. Will you come with me as my friend and lawyer? He looked at me, thought for a moment, and then smiled. It would be an honor for me, madam, to be with you in both roles. I smiled back. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. I think I made the right choice. I stood up and we left, telling Heidi that we would be on the production floor if she needed us. We went downstairs to the showroom and then to the workshop. As befits a leading German car dealership, the workshop was as spotlessly clean and well organized as the showroom itself. We headed to the maintenance room and went inside. Ernie Marchetti, the shop foreman and chief mechanic, sat there, frowning and looking at the computer screen through his glasses. He smiled when he saw us, but then frowned. Mrs. Olson, we are always glad to see you. And it was true, he thought. She lit up any room and never looked down on people, unlike the smug jerk she was married to. Please accept our condolences. The entire workshop mourns with you. Sean should be here any minute. He's all about the automatic transmission and hates leaving work unfinished. May I know what's wrong? Ernie, this is my lawyer, Mr. Herschel Schmidt. He is also the company's legal advisor. Herschel extended his hand, and they shook hands. I just want to meet Mr. Riley and express my condolences. How is he holding up? He's heartbroken, as you can imagine. Stephanie was his life. If it weren't for the child, he would be in complete despair. Now he is torn between the hospital and work. His parents are very worried about him, as are we all. I heard about the child. Such a tragedy, and he didn't know at all that his wife was pregnant. Ernie thought for a moment and then replied, It was a blow to him. It was like she was hiding it. I think there was something there, but I don't know what. He was the happiest man I knew, until he suddenly wasn't anymore, and I don't know why. He looked me straight in the eyes and asked, Do you know? Could be. At that moment, the door opened and a tall young man with an exhausted look entered. He was 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed about 185 pounds. His appearance indicated that he was completely exhausted. He stopped when he saw Herschel and me. Ernie spoke. Sean, this is Mr. Herschel Schmidt, lawyer, and I don't know if you know. Mrs. Olson. Yes, I recognized you. I'm very sorry for your loss. I couldn't destroy this man. I just couldn't. I walked up to him and took his hand. An electric shock shot through me. I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Riley. I want you to know that the company supports you. I am instructing HR to contact the hospital and pay all of your wife's medical bills. It's the least we can do. We want you to know that we are with you. Why are you doing this? It was just an accident. This guy was incredible, not an ounce of malice. I think it will be right. I want everyone here to feel like part of the family. Let us do this for you. He began to sob. Thank you very much. He staggered slightly, and I supported him. This shock struck me again, and I gasped. This man was special. I was stunned. I've never felt anything like this before. Sean. I sat there, stunned by what the doctor had just told me. Pregnant. My wife was pregnant. This can't be true. She never said anything. Surely she would know. I sank heavily into the chair and stared at the doctor. I didn't know that my wife was pregnant. I didn't know. I'm sorry, sir. I think you should understand that she is in a medically induced coma. The chances of her recovery are negligible. We support her life only for the sake of the child. If we can hold out for at least 2 more months, we will be able to carry out the birth safely. If it lasts longer, it will be great. But at least that much. You are her husband, and it is your decision. I was stunned. Lainey was next to me. She squeezed my hand tightly. I looked at her and then at Sal. Sal has been my best friend since 5th grade. We were like inseparable brothers. He married Gina Maria Louise Tarlairani, with whom he had been in love since school. I joined the Marine Corps. We were pretty close. He worked as a painter in the body shop of a car dealership. Sal sniffled as the doctor explained the situation, and Lainey cried her eyes out. Sal and Gina were married for 4 years and had 2 children, little Gina and Salvatore Sean. But none of this mattered to me as long as I tried to comprehend the doctor's words. Stephanie was pregnant, and she was dying, and I became a single father. There may be nothing I could do to save my wife, but I was willing to give my life to save my child. Can I see my wife, doctor? Of course, son. Just get ready. It won't be easy. Sal chimed in. Don't worry, doctor. We can handle it. The doctor took us to the room. It was a shock. 80% of her body was covered with bandages. Tubes, wires, and IVs were sticking out of it. Her face was not visible, but it was clear that the right side of her body was badly damaged, neither her arms nor her legs. The skull was deformed. I burst into tears and collapsed on the bed. Sal picked me up and sat me down in a chair. Lainey was almost hysterical. Oh, Stephanie, dear, dear, please don't leave me. Sal squeezed my shoulder and cried with me. Thus began my long watch. Every day, Monday through Friday, I visited her from 6:30 am until 9 am when I left for work. And then he returned at 18:30 and stayed until 22 o'clock, until they kicked me out. In fact, I often stayed long past midnight. I soon became something of a mascot for the department. One day, a new guard tried to kick me out. The head nurse and 3 nurses on the floor threatened him with everything from corporal punishment to dismissal. When he found out about my situation, he apologized, and from then on he began to protect me. On Saturdays, I was there from 9 o'clock until closing, sometimes longer. On Sundays from 8 a.m. immediately after church until closing. Sal and Gina visited often, and my parents visited her during the day and on weekends. I sat, held her hand, and read to her, talked to her, cried. God, how I cried. But her condition continued to deteriorate. She was fading away, but the child grew and became stronger. Celeste, I sat with him, talked, told him that if he needed anything, he should contact me. I was torn between sympathy and guilt. Time passed, and Sean continued to exist in some kind of fog. I often visited his wife, always secretly, at those hours when I knew he was at work. She was melting before our eyes. One Wednesday, while I was there, his parents came. We talked for a long time. I asked them not to tell Sean that they saw me because I didn't want him to think that I was interfering in his personal life. They promised to remain silent and thank me for my kindness. When Stephanie reached about 6.5 months into her pregnancy, her condition took a turn for the worse. The doctors decided that they couldn't wait any longer and performed an operation. A baby boy was born weighing 6 pounds 2 ounces. He was wonderful. Sean, I held my son in my arms. He was perfect in everything. I showed it to Stephanie, and then the doctors turned off the life support machines. She took 3 breaths and died. I cried and trembled while my parents hugged me. Sean Salvatore Riley Jr. and I returned to our small apartment. My sister came and stayed for a while. Mom either came to me to babysit Junior or my sister took him to his grandparents. Life began to return to some semblance of normalcy. I didn't know that Mrs. Olson sometimes comes in when the kid is not home and has a great time. We had a christening and Sal and Gina became his godparents. It was a small but sweet ceremony. After 2 years, I was able to save enough to buy a small house, 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, and a separate workshop. It was located outside the city on 2.5 acres. In addition, I received a large insurance payment. I made an offer to purchase, finalized the deal, and started getting ready to move. My sister and her husband came to help me pack my things. We loaded everything I had into my pickup truck and their expedition. Sal and Gina also came to help arrange a few pieces of furniture. We prepared Junior's room and set up the baby monitor so I could keep an eye on him. By 10:30 p.m., we decided to call it a day. It was Friday. Tomorrow was the first full day in the new house. I didn't know what shocks awaited me. The next morning I got up, made coffee, and got my son up. He always woke up happy. We went to have breakfast. He liked bananas and oatmeal. I ate bacon and eggs. Milk for him, coffee for me. We washed the dishes, watched some TV, and then he followed me into the bedroom, where we began unpacking boxes. One contained his mother's things, and I cried a little. I closed the box, but noticed that some things were unfamiliar to me. Then I found a box of cosmetics and lotions. I didn't remember the smell of the two perfumes and was a little surprised. Then I came across a box of things from her desk. I never opened it, I just shoved it in the closet. I took the lid off, and there was a photograph that was on her desk of me and her on the beach. My throat tightened. I took the photo and went to the baby's room, followed by my shadow. I placed it on his dresser and looked at him, pointed to Stephanie and said, "Mother." I tried again. "Mother." He looked and smiled at me. Well, maybe he doesn't understand yet. We will work on this. We returned to my room and continued to unpack the box. There were bottles of lotion, several lipsticks, several women's magazines, a brochure from a spa resort, and a catalog of expensive lingerie. Good things, but we can't afford them. Inside was an order form for several $100s for lingerie that it's best not to mention out loud. The order was made a year before the accident, paid with a corporate credit card. What the fuck, I thought. And at the very bottom of the box was a luxurious red leather binding embossed with "The Personal Journal of Stephanie Riley." I was stunned. I opened it, started reading, and my world fell into pieces. It all started 3 years before the accident. She had received a promotion about 4 months earlier, and it was written about in her new diary. A gift from her boss, Mr. Olson. He was so sweet and charming. He could be an update to her marital status. She decided that there was potential and quickly succumbed to his advances. At first it was just fleeting affairs, then it turned into sex. They soon began spending time in his secret apartment, just for a couple of hours during lunches and dealers' association meetings. She bought expensive clothes and underwear for meetings in this apartment. Then he asked her to divorce me and marry him. He was going to marry her child off as his when they were together. She should have filed for divorce that very Monday after the accident if everything had gone according to plan and disappeared. But everything went wrong. So was Junior even my child? What should I do? Did Mrs. Olson know about all this? I needed answers. I folded all the papers and took pictures of every page of the diary on my phone. I went to the office supply store, bought a large envelope, and made duplicates of everything. I put them in an envelope along with phone pictures and a diary. Added a note. "Did you know about this?" I addressed it to Mrs. Olson and sent it via courier, paying $50 for delivery to her office on Monday morning with signature required. Junior and I returned home, and I was trying to figure out what to do next. Who could I tell? I didn't really know anything, which means there's nothing to say yet. I spent the rest of the day hugging Junior and rocking back and forth. Sunday was wasted. After church, we went to my parents. I acted as if my dog had died. Although we didn't have a dog, they tried to get me to talk, but to no avail. By 5 in the evening, we packed up and went home. On Monday morning, I called work and said that I was taking the week off at my own expense. Then he hung up and turned off the phone. I was crushed. Celeste. On Monday morning, when I arrived at the office, I was immediately overwhelmed by a barrage of problems. Sean called and said he was taking a week off. No explanation, just hung up. Ernie tried to call him back, but there was already an answering machine. Then an envelope arrived. Heidi signed for it and brought it to my office. I looked at it and I was afraid to open it, although I didn't know why. I didn't know who it was from or what was in it. Finally, I realized that there was only one way to dispel my thoughts: take a letter opener and cut the envelope. I put my hand inside and was shocked to find a red diary there, or what looked like my diary. But is it mine? I opened the top left drawer and looked under the vertical partition. I left the false bottom there after the last time, and yes, here it is. I pulled it out and put it on the table. Then she looked at the other one and turned it over. The personal diary of Stephanie Riley. Oh no, I moaned. There were two of them. Now I knew who it was from. He found it. He knows. My God, I dropped my head into my hands and burst into tears. Over the past 2 years, I have developed feelings, but I have never decided to do anything about it. I talked to his parents, and they found me very nice. They said that he was lucky to have such a girlfriend, and I did not try to convince them otherwise. I was pleased that they approved of me. But he didn't know about my feelings for him, not about my visits, not about how much I love his son. Still, I found the letter and read it. Short, simple. Well, not really. Rather, harsh and accusatory. My God, he thinks I'm somehow involved in this. I thought for a moment and realized I needed to see him. I grabbed both diaries, papers, everything that was in the drawer, my bag, car keys, and left the office. On the way to Heidi's counter, I said, I'll be gone until the end of the day. Nobody should bother me, unless the dealership blows up. I went to my car, got into the AMG 63 convertible, and drove off, heading to Magnolia, to Sean's house. An hour later, I turned onto his gravel road and drove up to the house. She turned off the engine, took all the papers, took a deep breath, calmed down, and got out. I didn't know what I would say. I didn't know what situation I would find myself in. But I didn't care. I should have done this months ago, maybe even a year ago. Now it may be too late. I pursed my lips, gathered my courage, and pressed the call. Sean. He was crushed. I didn't know what to do. He walked around the house, turned on the TV, then turned it off. Junior followed him, making funny noises that a parent might have mistaken for conversation. Around 11:30, he put him to bed. I called my mother. Mom, can you come? I need to talk. Is everything okay, honey? How's the baby? He's fine, Mom. I just need someone to talk to. Please. Okay, I'll be there in a second. Just calm down until I get there, okay? Okay, Mom. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Damn, she must have broken every speed limit to get here, I thought. I opened the door and Mrs. Olfson was standing on the threshold of my house. She looked the way I felt. I hesitated, but still invited her to come in. She came in and I invited her to sit down. I noticed that she was holding 2 red account books, as well as some papers and photographs that I had sent, plus several large manila envelopes. She was about to sit down on the old, shabby sofa, but I pointed her to my leather chair. It was the best furniture in the house. I asked why she came. She blushed and looked especially beautiful at that moment. I need to put everything in its place, she said. Several years ago, I made a mistake and never corrected it. Now I've come to do it. Do you remember the day we first met? Do you remember how you felt when you shook my hand? I've never experienced anything like this before. You stunned me and took my breath away. But I didn't do anything, and for that I am infinitely ashamed. I should have come to you later and told you how I felt, but I didn't do it. I let you get on with your life. I visited you in the hospital 2 or 3 times a week. I even met your parents there. We became friends, and then your wife died after giving birth. I found out where your mom and dad lived and came to visit your son 3 times a week. I was the one who gave him a teddy bear for his first birthday, and I gave him a stuffed dog for his second birthday. I thought it was a gift from my aunt in New Jersey. That's exactly what my mother told me. I asked her to say that or something like that. I opened a scholarship fund for him, which he can receive at age 19 or after graduating from high school. I've been watching you for 2 years, probably too long. Although already on that first day when we met, I knew the truth. But I couldn't tell you then. It would kill you, especially before the birth of your son. That's why I was silent. God forgive me, but I was silent. I have all the papers here that confirm what happened. about how my bastard husband cheated on me with your wife and ruined both of our marriages. The baby is your son, and she hid it from you. I have documents that prove they planned to divorce both of us and then go into hiding and raise your son as their own. He was infertile due to illnesses suffered in childhood. I have loved you for more than 2 years. I waited too long, and you didn't even know it. And now I don't know if I have enough time to fix everything. I love you, Sean. I didn't know what to think. I was torn between what I was led to believe and what she told me. I wanted to believe her, but was she telling the truth? At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was my mother. I opened the door, and she came in. Sean, what happened? Then she saw Celeste. Oh, I didn't know you had guests. Hello, Celeste. How are you? Mrs. Riley, hello. Are you okay? Everything is fine. I haven't seen you for a long time. At that moment, we heard a baby crying in the nursery. The sound came from the baby monitor. I'll bring it, Mom said. Looks like you still have something to talk about. She left for my son. I knew that my mother was a smart woman. She saw more than she said. Celeste and I sat there, not knowing where to start. Mrs. Olson, please, Celeste, just Celeste. Okay? Celeste, you took me by surprise. I didn't know all these facts. I only found the ledger on Saturday. It always seemed like someone was pulling the strings unseen, but I didn't know everything. Or maybe I just didn't want to know. I don't know what to do now or how to react. At that moment, the mother returned with the baby. Sean Jr. looked around, rubbing his eyes, but when he saw Celeste, he joyfully exclaimed, Mommy, Mommy! He reached out to her, laughing. Celeste burst into tears. Oh, baby! And suddenly, everything fell into place. Mom smiled and looked at me. The truth speaks through the mouth of a baby. I couldn't stand it. I laughed and cried at the same time. It turned out that my mother understood everything a long time ago, but was silent because she saw how hard it was for me. We sat down at the table and sorted out all the papers. Gradually, the picture became clear. So our life went on as usual, with occasional troubles along the way. One of them was related to her family. It was her mother, Samantha, who raised the most questions. So Celeste decided that we should visit them. There was supposed to be a family meeting party this Saturday, but we weren't on the invite list. That's why we decided to come without an invitation. To her parents' house. Unexpected guests. Can you imagine the picture? We showed up, walked into her parents' house, and went straight to her mom and dad. My father noticed us, and his face broke into a wide smile. He hugged his daughter and kissed her on the cheek. So you're the same Sean, he said. Yes, sir. Glad to finally meet you, son. I'm Donald Forsane. Where is your son? It's with my parents, sir. We didn't know how it would go. He lowered his eyes and muttered. Understand. His daughter chimed in. Well, Dad, no one informed us about this meeting, and yet, here we are. She turned and stared at her mother. I stepped forward, turned to her mother, and said, Mrs. Forsane, I'm very glad to finally meet you. She looked at me as if I had forgotten to wash my hands and face. Hello, Mr. Riley, right? Yes, ma'am. But you can just Sean. Yes, sure. She turned back to her daughter. Darling, we didn't know if you would have the opportunity to come. It's a pity that you didn't receive an invitation. Oh, it's okay. Grandfather told us about the meeting. And then this respected man announced his presence. He came over, kissed Celeste on the cheek, and extended his hand to me. Nice to meet you, son. Our girls said only good things about you. I looked down and blushed slightly. Don't inflate his ego, Grandpa, Celeste said with a grin. Yes, whatever, her mother interjected. Since you are already here, let's discuss this wedding of yours. There's nothing to discuss here, Mom. We're going to get married, period. Celeste, think about your position in society. How will you show up at the country club? What will the newspapers say? What about all our friends? It's simple, Mom. I'll just stop going to the country club. My position in society will be determined by my work in the church and charitable organizations. The newspapers will write, Celeste who? And if our friends don't like it, then they aren't our friends. I was proud of this woman. But he's just a mechanic, an ordinary dirty fellow. Oh, your tact, madam, I thought. Yes, Mom, and thanks to him, I can afford to be at home with my husband and son. And this child, do we even know who his mother or father is? That's it. This woman just crossed the line. I straightened up and was about to tell her everything I was thinking, but Celeste grabbed my hand and slightly shook her head. She stepped towards her mother, slapped her across the face, and, shaking her index finger in front of her nose, spat out. Don't you dare ever talk about my son like that, bitch. Her mother, holding her face, screamed at her husband. Donald, calm down your daughter. Celeste's father looked at her, then turned to his wife and calmly said, Shut up, Samantha. There was deathly silence in the room. Everyone was staring at us. Samantha exploded. Donald, I will get you fired. A quiet, calm voice behind me said, No, Samantha, you won't achieve it. I turned around. Celeste's grandfather stood in front of us with a glass of bourbon and water in his hand. Samantha muttered something incomprehensible, burst into tears, and ran out of the room. Great move, honey, said her grandfather. I muttered something under my breath and added, I could deal with this. I'm sure I could, son. But then it would be an attack, and we would have to bail you out of prison. Otherwise, it's just a family dispute. I must admit, the old man was probably right. Celeste's father walked over and extended his hand to his father-in-law. Sorry, Dad, she shouldn't have said that. It's okay, son. She got what she deserved. Grandfather took Celeste by the arm and said, I'm hungry. Let's eat. The party returned to normal and Grandpa led us to the buffet. We grabbed food and drinks and went to find a table. We found a small table for two on the terrace and sat down. Celeste smiled at me and the world became beautiful again. Several relatives came up to us to congratulate us. Two of her friends stopped by to tell her that she was lucky and that she had definitely made a better choice this time. No one seemed to love Richard, her first husband. You were just wonderful there with your mother. I'm very proud of you, and I'm a little afraid. She giggled and looked into my eyes. No one says that about my boys. Nobody. God, how I love this woman. My first wedding to Richard was organized by my mother. Social status, family considerations, and money played a big role in this. If it were up to her, I would marry someone like. She nodded behind me, indicating the approaching Jeffrey Lawson. This guy has been after Celeste since she was widowed. He was interested in her money, or more precisely, how he could spend it. I couldn't stand him. At all. I wonder why. He approached with an arrogant look and turned to Celeste. Well, are you done wasting time with this carboy? Gad. Celeste put her hand on my forearm as if claiming me and said, What's on your mind, Jeffrey? I just thought it was time for you to get involved with a real man. Like I said, bastard. Oh, you mean someone with a gambling addiction, a drug problem, 2 pending paternity suits, 4 divorce cases in which he is named as a defendant, serious financial difficulties after his father fired him, and social pariah status. Or are you talking about a ladies' man who can't control himself? I was already married to someone like that, Jeffrey. So who are we talking about? While Celeste was making this tirade, Jeffrey's complexion rapidly paled, and he was on the verge of fainting. How did you know all this? The old principle, know your enemy. And you, Jeffrey, are definitely my enemy. I think it's better if you leave. Now. Bye, Jeffy, I added. He hates this nickname. He turned around and quickly retreated, while Celeste looked after him. I was beginning to think that I could not compare with this woman. She was clearly out of my league. But then she turned to me and glared at me with her beautiful blue eyes. And don't even think about backing up. We are perfect for each other, and our love is the best I could ever hope for. So get yourself together, buddy, and let's go talk to my grandfather. She smiled like crazy. Hell, she also reads minds. She extended her hand to me and led me to my grandfather. He sat on the edge of the terrace by the goldfish pond and talked with 3 of his old friends. When they saw us, they stood up, shook his hand, smiled at us, and apologized as they left. He also stood up as we approached and took Celeste's hand, helping her sit up. I sat opposite him, and Celeste sat to his left. He looked at us and grinned. Okay, what do you want to know? We just have a couple of questions, grandfather. I always have time for my beloved granddaughter. By the way, he turned to me, your father sometimes takes your son away from his mother during the day and brings him to the VFW. Everyone there adores him, especially Tamara and Justine, the barmaids. They said they would look after him when he grew up. I want to get him when he starts dating girls. But he is only 3 years old, I exclaimed. An apple from an apple tree, Celeste grinned. Do you have another granddaughter? I was surprised. Actually, she is his great-granddaughter, Celeste explained with a smile, and then turned to her grandfather in a more serious tone. How did you silence your mother so quickly? She was on fire and attacked Dad with such fury as I had rarely seen. Like I told your father, she deserved it. He looked at both of us. And then I owned the company. Wow, I don't even know what to think. This man owns a company, but I always thought he was just a machinist. He began to explain. I founded Midwest Machinery when I returned from Vietnam. I didn't know much about running a business back then, but after a few years things took off. So I hired a couple of business guys, one of whom was your father. He started making eyes at your mother, and it seemed to me that he suited her. I hired her as a secretary receptionist. He continued to move up the career ladder, and when he became a sales manager, he asked me for her hand in marriage. And only then did he propose to her. Quite old-fashioned, don't you think? But you're just a driver, I said. And you're just a mechanic. And what? He retorted. Touché, I thought. Now I was even more impressed with her grandfather. Then your mother gave birth to your brother, and... Wait, you also have a brother? I was dumbfounded. Celeste was now just rolling with laughter. Yes, I have an older brother, Donald Hugh Forsain. He graduated from West Point and qualified as an airborne paratrooper. He later qualified for the Green Berets and was assigned to SOCOM in Florida. He returned home all inspired, talking about what he was doing and saying that he wanted to make a military career. Dad and I were very proud of him, and his mother continued to call him Little Soldier in a derogatory tone and told him that he should return home and find a respected office job. In the end, he got tired of it. He told his mother, "Fuck you," and stated that this is his life, and he makes his own choices. He accepted an assignment to Florida and was then sent to Ethiopia. There he met a Christian Arab neurosurgeon, Dr. Ami Kashaim. They got married and have 2 beautiful children, a boy and a girl. His wife is simply a dazzling beauty. They never returned to the States. 2 years ago, he received the rank of major. I talked to him and his wife 5 to 6 times a week. I told him everything about you. He thinks it's cute that you're a Marine, she giggled. I immediately realized that she was making fun of me, most likely at the instigation of her brother. Well, I'm sure he's a good guy for a Green Beret. Grandfather chuckled quietly. Celeste frowned a little and said, I hoped they would be back in time for our wedding. Okay, let's stop this whole circus, said the grandfather. He looked at me. Are you happy? Yes, sir, very much. And you, Celeste? Yes, grandfather, I'm happy. Do you love my granddaughter? Without a shadow of a doubt, I answered. Of course, sir. Do you, Celeste, love him? She turned to me and looked me straight in the eyes. With all my heart, grandfather, then everything else is just nonsense. Be a man, stand your ground, and get married. It doesn't matter what others think or do, as long as you are happy. It's just a pity that your grandmother didn't see this. Celeste's grandmother passed away from cancer just over 5 years ago. I looked at this amazing woman next to me and realized that I was the happiest person in the world. I shook my grandfather's hand, Celeste hugged him and kissed him on the cheek. We got up and headed into the living room to see her father. We approached him, and I extended my hand. Nice to finally meet you, son. Maybe we can come meet our grandson someday. Any time, sir. Celeste came up, hugged her father, and kissed him. Thank you, Dad. We love you. And then I saw her. Samantha walked towards us with a determined look. The last thing I wanted was a girl fight, so I immediately stepped between my fiancée and her mother. It was impossible to do anything stupider. Samantha literally crashed into me, and I immediately realized who Celeste inherited her ample breasts from her mother. She pressed herself close to me, burying her face in my chest. Tears flowed from her eyes, soaking my shirt. "I'm so sorry. I was such a fool. I just want you to be happy. I'm sorry." I carefully pulled her away from me, looked into her face, and kissed her forehead. "It's okay, Mom, really." Celeste froze in amazement. Her father looked dumbfounded. Samantha pushed me aside and hugged her daughter tightly. "It's okay, Mom. Everyone makes mistakes. We still love you. I was so stupid. Can you forgive me?" "I've already forgiven you, Mom. But understand, this is important for us. This is what we want. Our own lives, but with you all close. Understand?" "Yes. And forgive me again. Do you think I can come and see my new grandson?" She blushed slightly. "Certainly. We will be glad if you and Dad come to visit." Her father leaned towards me and quietly whispered, "Don't worry, she'll get good for it tonight." I turned sharply towards him with a shocked expression on my face. "It's okay, she loves it. Just don't tell her daughter or her father. They may not understand." He winked at me and grinned slyly. "This family is simply incredible." We drove home, and she carefully watched my expression as I drove the car. "Well, are we okay?" she asked. "Of course, honey. Why wouldn't we be okay?" "I love you, honey," she said. "And I'm even bigger than you, darling. Shall we go pick up little Sean? I think we should go home and get a good night's sleep so as not to be late for work tomorrow." "But it's only 7 in the evening." I was surprised. "Exactly. So we should go home and get a good night's sleep so you won't be late for work tomorrow." "Ah, understood." I love this woman so much. And yet we were almost late for the service at 10 a.m. Major Donald Hugh Forsain looked in the mirror in his bedroom and absent-mindedly ran his finger over the golden oak leaves on his collar. His promotion to major had just been approved, and he was happy about it. "It's time to come home. I've been away too long," he thought. In fact, only about 12 years had passed since he left the States, but those 12 years were filled with change. A Boko Haram attack shortly after his arrival was not unexpected, but saving the life of a stunningly beautiful neurosurgeon did. He remembered. First Lieutenant Donald Hugh Forsain laced his boots. He was already starting to get tired of the cake tasks. No work, and all only because his uniform looked more elegant than the Marines'. He thought that this time it would be different because the ambassador himself personally asked him, and then he found out what was the matter. Christmas party at a children's hospital. His Marine counterpart, Lieutenant Jake O'Donnell, laughed at him when he told the ambassador he was confident the Green Berets could handle it. "There's no point in sending Marines, sir. We have more important things to do." "Thank you so much, Jake," he thought to himself. He met up with the other 3 members of his group in the armory. Corporal Simon Davis asked the lieutenant if he would take the M16. "No, a pistol is enough for me." "I trust you guys not to shoot me," he laughed. "I don't know, sir. Those nuns in elementary school always scared me," Davis said. All 4 laughed and went to the children's hospital. Dr. Ami Kashim was leaving the hospital where she worked as a staff neurosurgeon specializing in pediatrics. It was lunchtime, and she and 2 nurses were heading to an open-air cafe. First Lieutenant Donald Forsain and 3 of his embassy guards were on their way to a children's hospital to throw a Christmas party for the children. Humanitarian relations with the local government were one of the ambassador's top priorities, and the hospital was run by Catholic nuns and supported by the Catholic Church. As soon as their Humvee pulled up to the hospital, all hell broke loose. Shots and explosions rang out. People began to run in panic. One of the nurses was injured and fell to the ground. The gunman ran toward the 2 remaining women, attempting to force them into the truck when a Green Beret officer and his embassy squad intervened. Shots rang out. Lieutenant Forsain killed 2 militants, but was immediately shot in the chest. He managed to shoot 2 more, after which he rushed at the tall, black-haired woman, knocking her down. He thought, this is even better than taking down an Alabama running back in college football. He laid the woman against the wall of the store, near which they fell, and began smearing his blood on her blouse and robe. He covered her with his body. He turned around and shot another insurgent, and then his men completed the clearing and began treating the wounded nurse. Corporal Davis approached him and began to examine his wound. "Damn, Lieutenant, some people will do anything to avoid working," he grinned, then turned to the woman and helped her get up. "Not a bad welcome, ma'am. Sorry for the blood." She immediately turned her attention to Donald. "I'm a doctor," she said. Davis chuckled. "Well, naturally, officers are always lucky." Donald laughed and, imitating Bugs Bunny, said, well, Doc." Then he lost consciousness. She looked at him in horror, but soon her face lit up with laughter. He was beautiful, strong, but he was losing too much blood. She continued to help him, smiling tenderly. That smile was better than any medicine. She understood now he is hers. When he woke up, he muttered, "My name is Lieutenant Donald Forsain, ma'am. Sorry for that jump, and for the ruined blouse." She put a finger to his lips, silencing him, and, blushing slightly, said, "You saved my life, Lieutenant. Nothing else matters. Thank you." Their gazes met, and tears sparkled in her eyes. He knew his life would change forever. After this, Marines and Green Berets were deployed around the hospital. She treated his wounds, and then the embassy ambulance arrived to pick him up. She said she would monitor his condition. After all, he was now her patient. He was taken back to the embassy. There he was examined by an embassy doctor and a military medic. He reported to his immediate commander. Captain Linger wrote up a report on the incident and learned about the condition of the wounded nurse. And then he was visited by the rescued woman and the ambassador himself. When the ambassador learned the details of the operation and noticed the doctor's name, he took special interest in her condition and in their actions. It turned out that Dr. Ami Kasheim is the only daughter of Professor and Mrs. Afwerki Aaron Kasheim, the Minister of Health. Although they had 3 sons, the daughter was her father's favorite. And now she told her father that Lieutenant Forsain was her favorite. She stood at his bedside as the ambassador and his commanding officer, Colonel James Nightmare Singleton, presented him with a Purple Heart and Bronze Star and promoted him to the rank of captain. And then he met Professor Afwerki Aaron Kasheim and his wife, Fatima. The professor looked worried. Dr. Kasheim blushed slightly and found it difficult to meet his gaze. But Mrs. Kasheim looked like she knew some secret. She smiled like a cat that just ate the canary and kept adjusting his hospital gown, stroking his cheek. After the official congratulations, a serious conversation began. "My wife and daughter say that you are important to my girl." "Father," a slight smile appeared on the man's lips. "Well, that's exactly how you presented everything to me," he said. He was clearly enjoying the moment, teasing his daughter. "I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Captain. We owe you a huge debt of gratitude, and it seems to me that thanking one person for saving my daughter and for her happiness will be much easier than thanking her savior and her husband separately." "Father," the gentleman laughed quietly and turned to his wife. "Looks like the young people need to talk." His wife smiled and kissed the new captain on the cheek. "Thank you again. Tell your family that I owe them a huge debt," her mother said. Dr. Ami walked to the head of the bed and adjusted the pillow. She pulled the blanket and sheet a little higher. She looked appraisingly at her perfectly manicured nails, but did not meet his gaze. She was about 170 centimeters tall, looked 60 kilograms, with long black hair tied in a bun, a slender figure, and sizzling black eyes. So deep. Deep. She fidgeted nervously. She shyly lowered her gaze to the bed rail. "So you're in love with me?" Donald thought. "I hope so." Ami's eyes widened in surprise. She hesitated a little and then said, "Where did you get that from, Captain?" Now she looked him straight in the eyes and did not look away. "Wow," he thought. "This girl has a backbone." Donald cleared his throat. Well, I don't know what you told your parents or how you phrased it, but it seems like your father decided that you were madly in love with me. I smiled, looking at her. It was obvious that this conversation had unsettled her a little. She looked at me and her eyes sparkled. Then she sighed. When I was at medical school in Paris, I was not a model student. I walked a lot and was, so to speak, wild. Every smooth-talking student, and sometimes older men, tried to take advantage of me. She hesitated. Some people succeeded. My parents found out about it, and my mother said my father was shocked and furious. He wanted to take me home before I, quote, ruined my reputation. That's what my parents' generation called it. Mom flew to Paris, and we had a conversation. She set me on the right path. I graduated from the university with honors. She returned to Addis Ababa and got a job as a pediatric neurosurgeon. I've been on staff for 5 years now. I love my job. I was able to put my personal life aside and focus on my patients. Sometimes you manage to save someone, and sometimes you don't. When you saved me, you did it without thinking about your safety. And you didn't even know who I was. Then she smiled. And even after getting wounded, you managed to joke. I was amazed by your attitude, but then I laughed at your cheeky humor. I realized that you are an American. I became interested. I made inquiries about you, as they say in America, and she was impressed by what she learned. You are a good person. And now you have a nice scar. I think this scar is for me. At least that's what I'd like to think. She looked away slightly, and her slightly narrowed eyes flashed with fire as she looked at me again. So, yes, I think I love you. She smiled at me. I faltered. Then he blushed. Then he began frantically looking for something to distract himself. I didn't find anything, so I looked into those burning black eyes again. Okay, she's right. And I love her too. Damn, she got me. I thought, my parents will be delighted. Well, definitely father, but it's unclear what will impress mom. My sister will be happy. Maybe she'll finally leave this asshole of a husband. At least. I looked at Ami and gathered my courage. Is there anyone I should worry about? Or should I just fight Boko Haram? Because if this happens regularly, I will have to wear a bulletproof vest all the time, I grinned. She grinned back. Yes. I look at him. Ahem. Well, I think we should get to know each other better. How do they generally meet in Ethiopia? She looked at him intently. Then she grinned. Well, you need to give me expensive jewelry, a new car, preferably European, take me to expensive restaurants, go to clubs with me, and talk to my father and brothers. As she spoke, she looked me straight in the eyes with an absolutely serious expression on her face. Glot. Okay. Army is standing at the 3-yard line, back to home zone, first and goal. Navy has the ball, 7 seconds left. We lead by 6 points. No pressure. I swallowed hard. Then Ami smiled. What a smile. Or, she said, giggling, you can come to my house for dinner when you get out of the hospital and meet my family. Oh, damn. The Navy quarterback took the ball and made his way right through my zone to the left. Touchdown. They hit an extra kick. The Navy won the Army-Navy match. For 1 point. That's how I felt. I don't know if I'm smart enough for this woman. But damn it, we'll figure it out. I smiled at her and told her that I would be happy to come to her for dinner. She smiled at me again and said that she had to go to work, but tomorrow after her shift she would come to see me and talk to his parents. She kissed me on the cheek and waved goodbye. As soon as she walked out the door, the other patients in the room began whistling and shouting humorous comments. I smiled at the ceiling. Thought I'd buy a bottle of Johnny Walker Black and write a note thanking Jake. I chuckled quietly. So I started to get better. I slept well, looking forward to tomorrow. My guest arrived at 15 o'clock with a big smile on his face and 2 sheets of cardboard measuring approximately 25 by 30 centimeters. I have gifts for you, she smiled. She placed 2 hand-drawn drawings on my bed. This one is from my patients, she said. The drawing shows a male silhouette in a green shirt and trousers. A little man with a joyful smile was holding hands with a female figure in white, who was also smiling. Hearts and birds flew around them. At the top, in large letters, was written, "Thank you, Captain Fursane, for saving Dr. Ami." "That's nice, Ami," I smiled. The second drawing showed a big guy in green, holding two pistols, towering over a small figure in white. He laughed and shot at the guys in black. She was crying. In large letters, it was written, "Hooray!" I held back a smile and said, "Maybe I should ask your male patients to lobby for my next promotion." She smiled and said that the two boys thought I was a cool guy, and four girls said they were ready to marry me. We talked some more, and she let me hold her hand. She said that when I was discharged, her parents would be happy to have me over for dinner. "No pressure," she added. I winced a little and said I was looking forward to it. No pressure, right? I recovered and was allowed to return to service. The ambassador called me into his office. He asked Miss Casheim whether I behaved decently. He said that Professor Casheim was making inquiries about my origin. The ambassador gave me a brilliant description. The ambassador's wife spoke to Ami's mother and said that, although she did not know me personally, the times we met, I left a very pleasant impression on her. My commander told the professor that I was a West Point graduate, an excellent student, and had great promise in the Army. So the dinner invitation arrived at our Green Beret unit headquarters, and I was given clear instructions to conduct myself with the utmost dignity. The reputation of the U.S. Army was at stake. I joked that now we were definitely screwed, but my commander immediately jumped up from his chair and, coming close, literally rubbed his nose into me. "Captain, this is no laughing matter. You will treat this young lady with the utmost respect. Think of her as your sister. Am I clear, soldier?" "Sir, that's exactly, sir." It's good that he didn't say, "as to my mother." I bought flowers and pasteurized grapefruit juice. I was familiar with Middle Eastern traditions and knew that alcohol was prohibited in Muslim families. I got a car from the embassy's car park and drove to the specified address to the Kasheim family's house. I arrived 10 minutes early, gifts in hand, and walked to the front door. I rang the bell and was greeted by a young man who led me into a spacious courtyard. There was a whole welcoming delegation waiting for me: father, mother, paternal grandmother, maternal grandmother, older brother, even older brother, oldest brother, and the sweet, modest, chaste Dr. Ami, as well as her long-time nurse. Okay, maybe I didn't love her that much. My mother hugged me warmly, and I handed her flowers. She was delighted, smiled at me, and handed the flowers to the young servant. Then my father came up and shook my hand. I smiled and handed him the grapefruit juice. He looked at me with bewilderment. Considering myself a smart guy, I explained that I knew about the prohibition of alcohol in his religion. He studied the label. Grapefruit juice? I didn't know that Coptic Christians couldn't drink alcohol, and I thought that I had been a good Christian for 45 years. What? He turned to his mother and told her the situation. Her eyes widened, and then she looked at me, and she burst out laughing. His brothers grinned. My maternal grandmother rolled her eyes and chuckled. The mother laughed and shook her head. Ami giggled and walked over to me. "Where is my European sports car?" I looked away and blushed embarrassedly. Sorry, the best I could get was a Ford Fiesta from the embassy fleet. Ami and her brothers burst into laughter. Apparently, no one else knew the joke. After this and subsequent explanations, our dinner began. We ate lamb skewers, couscous, hummus, roasted vegetables, and a rich 1979 Cabernet Sauvignon. A wonderful year. And I had 3 months of grapefruit juice. A wonderful month. But I had a good sense of humor and gradually won over the family. The fact that I was Catholic was a plus, and I was also manly handsome. I sat between her father and one brother on one side and 2 other brothers on the other. Ami and her mother sat opposite us between 2 grandmothers and a wet nurse. Ami smiled throughout dinner. Mother and both grandmothers remained neutral. The nurse looked at me angrily. Overall, I thought I was ahead. After dinner, when the sun had set and a light breeze blew, we sat in the garden and told each other stories about life. It was reminiscent of an Italian or Mexican family party. We were accompanied by a whole crowd of companions. As the evening wore on, both grandmothers said good night, then the wet nurse, then the mother, sending the brothers off to bed amid their mischievous grins. Father and mother were clearly in no hurry to leave. My father continued to smile at me. Ami sat next to me on the sofa, about 18 inches away. Mother looked at us with a smile, drinking wine. Finally, the father looked at his watch and said, "Well, we've already tortured you enough, and it looks like your mother has already drinked more than enough. And if you don't hug my daughter, she'll probably freeze to death." Wink, wink. The mother put down her glass and stood up uncertainty, leaning on her husband's hand. Oh, thank God. One more glass, and I would have collapsed. Don't stay out late, you two. I stood up, took her hand, and kissed her tenderly on the cheek. Good night, Mom. Ooh, he's very gallant, she laughed. Ami covered her mouth with her hand and giggled. Her father shook his head, rolled his eyes to the sky, and shook my hand. Behave yourself, he said. Sir, yes, sir, I replied. They went into the house, and I sat down again, and Ami pouted. I thought we could have a little fun, she whispered. At that moment, I covered her lips with mine. I penetrated her lips with my tongue, and then into her mouth. I whispered in her ear, "How about some dessert?" "Ooh, I like American desserts," she purred. "Ethiopian pastries are also good," I whispered into her neck. We hugged and kissed, and I managed to get to second base. About that moment, the porch light began to flicker. "I thought it was just an American tradition," I said. She smiled. "It seems like fathers are the same everywhere." I kissed her nose, wished her good night, and headed back to the barracks. The next day, the colonel called me to his place and asked me to report on the dinner. I gave a general overview of the evening and an assessment of the dinner, trying not to focus on the embarrassment of wine and grapefruit juice. But he still caught the moment and laughed at my confusion. "Well, now you know something about her religion. You know that at least you didn't offend their beliefs, and you are convinced that this girl is a completely down-to-earth person. What are your intentions next?" I thought for a moment and realized there was only one option. "I think I'll propose to her." The colonel looked at me for a long time. "My wife and I have been married for 35 years. It was the best decision of my life. I think yours is also a worthy girl. So don't screw it up, Captain." "Sir, that's right, sir," I answered. Life went on as usual. I went on several dates with Ami. I went to church with her family, and they, in turn, attended services with me. Her parents seemed pleased that I was the right guy, and she didn't mind riding in the motor pool Fiesta or from time to time in the Army Humvee. We had picnics and went to local attractions. I saw where Haile Selassie was buried and learned a bit of Ethiopian history. In turn, he told her his story, the history of Texas and the United States. I talked about my father and sister, mentioned her marriage to her scoundrel husband. I talked about how my mother was not happy with my decision to join the army and stay there for the rest of my career. She said she was very proud of me, but she was also scared to death for me when I went out on patrol. She constantly repeated that she loved me. I answered her the same. I met several of her friends. They were mostly doctors, a few university professors, quite decent people, except for one thing. Ahmad Ben Danshari was a businessman, or rather a financial consultant. He had known Ami almost all of her life and was a family friend. Her parents knew him and his family. His mother didn't love him. His father considered him a dubious character. And her brothers believed that the American boyfriend was superior to him in all respects. No offense, but he was a Muslim. He constantly tried to persuade her to convert to Islam. For Ami, this was categorically unacceptable. And he also believed that American football was a game for Neanderthals. Okay, so I'm a caveman. I noticed that football is like a tea party, just not that relatable. He didn't appreciate the joke. I reminded myself that I was a guest in this country. That's why I didn't beat him, yet. One afternoon, I stopped by the hospital to offer Ami a ride home, and I saw him in the hospital courtyard shouting at her. I stopped and began to watch. She seemed to be trying to calm him down, and then she took his hands and spoke to him very seriously, shaking her head. She stood on tiptoes and kissed him. The kiss didn't seem very long, but it was still a kiss. She and I never discussed the exclusivity of our relationship, but I just thought, well, that we were a couple. It turns out there is no such thing in Ethiopia. Live and learn, as they say. I turned to leave when I heard her scream. I turned around sharply and saw him put his hands under her robe. She pushed him, screaming for him to stop. And he just grinned smugly and said that a real woman should accept the attention of a man. We're not in Texas, but I was still a Texan. I rushed towards them and grabbed him by the man bun at the back of his head. Ami gasped at my sudden appearance and stepped back. "Well, freak, what are you doing here?" He looked at me with frank fear in his eyes, but quickly pulled himself together. His self-confidence returned. "Let me go, infidel. I will take your soul for this sacrilege." "Well, if that's the case," I muttered and hit him right in the nose. The cartilage cracked and he collapsed to the ground. Ami gasped and whispered, "Donald, what have you done?" I made the most innocent face possible, looked at him, then at her. I hit him in the nose. Isn't it obvious? She looked at me like I was a stupid child. Well, I was a guy after all. The guy who was in love, and I didn't see any problem with that. You can't just swing your fists when you're angry. You are a grown man, and you should act like one. Otherwise, how can I marry you? HM, I think she just proposed to me. She came up to me and pulled out a platinum ring from her pocket. "Donald, for saying, will you marry me and give me your children?" She was about to get down on one knee when my brain finally rebooted and I caught her by the arms. "Yes, yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Then I looked at her, grinned, and asked, "What took so long?" She looked at me with that same look that meant, "Stop your American jokes." I looked down at the groaning heap of camel dung sprawled on the ground. "She asked me to marry her, idiot," I told him with a satisfied grin. Then I came back to reality. What kind of kiss was that? She blushed and replied, "I tried to get him out of my life. Now and forever there is only you. I can only give you my word. Everything that happened before our meeting is ancient history. If you have secrets, I don't want to know them. From now on, we are exclusive." Encouraged, I turned to this piece of shit, who had already risen to his feet and grinned even wider. "And we are exclusive." He looked at me through the pain and said, "Congratulations. The cow is yours." I looked down and thought she might let me deal the final blow. I struggled with the urge to act childishly in the eyes of my future wife. And then she walked around me and slammed him right between the legs. Twice. Obviously, only one of us had to be mature. Of course, we kissed and went to an elite jewelry store, which, as it turned out, belonged to Ami's uncle. When we arrived, we were greeted by relatives whom I had not yet met. Before choosing the perfect ring, we had a mandatory congratulatory tea ritual. We also purchased 2 wedding rings to go with our engagement rings. Then we returned home to her parents. When we entered, her father looked at me with the same look that made me question, have I overestimated the atmosphere around our relationship? Her father was a big man as tall as me, but maybe 10 kilos lighter. However, he was in good shape. He rose from his chair and approached me. I swallowed slightly and straightened up to meet his gaze. He looked me up and down and looked straight into my eyes. "It's high time," he said thoughtfully. Then he smiled and extended his hand. I shook it and blushed slightly. "Take care of her, love her, and protect her, just like you did before. I entrust you with my most precious treasure." "No pressure, yes." I swallowed again. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." Ami grabbed my hand and kissed me so much that my soul was on fire. Her mother came up to me, took my hand, and kissed me on the cheek. "She's your responsibility now. Take care of her and give me grandchildren." I kissed her forehead and promised that we would try. We set a wedding date 8 months later, after which I called home to tell my parents and little sister what had happened. Celeste was delighted, my father was very proud of me, and my mother. Well, my mother threw a real tantrum on the phone. Ami talked to my sister and father. Mom left, citing urgent matters. The father said that they would book tickets and definitely come to the wedding. The next day, my sister called and said that her husband had meetings all week and would not be able to attend. Mom assured me that she would come. My sister arrived first. We met her at the airport, took her to her hotel, helped her check in, and then gave her a tour of Addis Ababa. Almost instantly, she became friends with Ami, and they began to chirp like magpies. It got to the point that when we left the hotel to go sightseeing, Ami sat in the back seat of my rented Mercedes next to Celeste, and I took on the role of chauffeur. Maybe she even wanted to marry my sister. We drove around the city for about 2 hours and then went to Ami's parents' house. Ami opened the door and loudly announced our arrival. We were met by her mother and 2 grandmothers. Women's conversations instantly reached such a level that I was excluded from communication. Then her brothers came. Finally, at least a little male communication. The guys entered, walked past my outstretched hand, and rushed to meet my sister. I went to the kitchen, took lemon water, and went to the courtyard where the ladies were having their endless conversation. I found an abandoned wicker chair under the huge tree that dominated the patio and waited for Ami's father to come home. At least I was pretty sure he still treated me well. The estrogen storm was gaining strength, and her brothers were enjoying the spectacle. Her father came, waved to me, and went straight to the chicken roost. At least everyone loved my sister, which meant I moved up a few spots in the rankings. My parents arrived 4 days later, and my father immediately became everyone's favorite. Ami's father found a common language with him, and her mother, winking at me, said that she now understands where I got my good manners and appearance from. With my mother, it was different. She was aloof and hardly interacted with women. Ami's mother began to worry that my mother did not approve of my choice. Her father simply called her a cold fish. I apologized and said that Ami was not marrying my mother. For me, Ami is my whole world, and I dedicated my life to her. I was sure she felt the same. Her mother assured me that Ami would rather die than disappoint me. The men began to prepare a bachelor party, and the women began to prepare an oriental version of it for Ami. I was glad that my sister was there on behalf of our family, because my mother would hardly have been the life of the party there. My father arranged for my maternal grandparents to come to the bachelor party and wedding. Ami's father and brothers told me it would be a traditional Ethiopian bachelor party. My grandmother got tired easily, but she liked the almost constant attention. She had cancer and may not have been with us long. Celeste, Ami, and her mother Fatima took care of her and entertained her with stories of my heroic exploits. Grandma was in seventh heaven. Even my mother showed her human side to everyone. All the men, including my boss, my deputy, and the captain in charge of the Marines at the embassy, were invited to the bachelor party. We went to a nightclub. Turns out it was a belly dancing bar. My future brothers cheerfully informed me that this place was wow, but nothing should be touched. My future father-in-law watched me closely and also became friends with my grandfather and father, so it was difficult for me to relax. But the free-flowing ouzo, tella, antage, areca, scotch, bourbon, and other alcoholic drinks soon did their job. Not to mention the presence of one very buxom, seductive young lady who insisted on keeping me company and making sure my glass was never empty. The entertainment was quite good, and my future brothers and I had a fair amount of fun. My father was having a great time and openly flirting with a young girl who kept rubbing her butt against him. Even my very reserved future father-in-law received his share of female attention and right to his face. Grandpa commented that we should open something similar in Houston. We closed the club, and Ami's father thanked the owner for a great evening. As we loaded into the Mercedes limousines, 2 of my future brothers threw out their dinner. Their father shook his head and commented that it looked like he would have to walk them more often. The bachelorette party turned out to be even more interesting. The future bride, of course, was the center of attention. The wine flowed freely as Ami told the story of her rescue and subsequent romance. And he was so sweet when he talked to me, she said. When he made his joke before passing out, I was shocked. And then I realized that he was quoting cartoons and that he was American. I almost died laughing. She looked at my mother, grandmother, and sister. When he came to his senses, he was so charming that I immediately fell for his bait. As the Americans say, I was hooked. She raised the glass to her lips, and slyness flashed in her eyes. When we started dating, he even taught me how to play baseball. She batted her eyelashes innocently and took a sip of wine. Celeste froze with her glass halfway to her mouth and stared at Ami. He taught you to play baseball. Ami slowly took another sip, paused, and finally answered. Yes. She looked around those present and added. He even got to second base a few times and said he'd really like to hit a home run. Donald's grandmother burst out laughing. His sister spat out a good portion of her wine all over the patio, and his mother's jaw dropped and stayed there. The rest of the girls simply burst into laughter. They were clearly aware of this joke. Even Ami's mother blushed and giggled. She was already close to her drinking limit. Her grandmothers looked at each other, not understanding why everyone was laughing so much. Ami quickly took the initiative and assured everyone that Donald was a real gentleman and all their kisses were purely in a fit of passion. I'm incredibly lucky to have found him, she said, looking at Donald's mother, sister, and grandmother. I love him with all my soul and will devote my life to making him happy. She smiled slyly. One way is to give him as many children as he wants, and as many as he can bear. She winked at his mother and grandmother. Ami knew about Celeste's problems with conception and one day had a serious talk with her, promising that Celeste would always be the most beloved person for her children, their best aunt. Our wedding went off without a single hitch. The reception took place at the Hotel Sheraton Addis, a luxury 5-star hotel. The holiday brought together the entire elite diplomats, politicians, military men, and simply rich people. All this was arranged by Ami's family. Years later, when I couldn't remember or recognize someone, Ami would just bat her eyelashes and say, "Oh, darling, well, you remember him. He was at our wedding." I think the guest list was about 5,000 people, according to my wife. We spent our honeymoon in Greece, thanks to my parents. We went on a river cruise to Alexandria, Egypt. Then we got to Athens by plane and made a short flight to the Cyclades Islands. We played a lot of baseball, and my batting statistics were higher than 1.0. I think I broke the record of Mark McGuire on a home run, including a dozen grand slams. We returned to Ethiopia and continued our lives. We did not live at the base, but in Ami's apartment. We were immensely happy. And as promised, soon our first child was born. 10 months later, Ami gave birth to our daughter Ami to Fatima Samant, named after our mothers. She was beautiful. She inherited her mother's beauty and grace. Her grandparents were in 7th heaven. 2 years later, her brother was born. Donald Afwerki Aaron Fursain, the spitting image of his father. Just shorter. When I held him in my arms in the delivery room, all the dreams that a father has about his firstborn flashed before me. College, military service, possible NFL career, beautiful wife, kids. My wife immediately brought me back to reality. Isn't he beautiful? He will become an excellent doctor or maybe a professor. She grinned. Or maybe a baseball player like his father, she added slyly. This woman was devilishly cunning, and I adored her. My little family grew and prospered. 5 years have passed. Our children seem to have a talent for football. Damn it, I was able to obtain several television programs from the States. Sitcoms, NFL games, police shows, and news programs. We grew stronger as a family, and their mother continued to worry about my combat missions. We focused on a new threat, a group called Al-Qaeda. We carried out several operations in pursuit of a group led by a certain Osama bin Laden. He was a Saudi citizen who declared a holy war against the United States and its allies. As far as I knew, I hadn't done anything bad to him, but I really hoped to do it if the chance arose. There was also an organization called ISIS. Their group has placed a bounty on the heads of all Americans in the Horn of Africa and surrounding areas. The head of the local CIA office told me that intelligence reports indicate that they are also interested in military families. Realizing this wasn't Texas and Ami was already afraid of guns, I talked to her dad about hiring a couple of people to guard her. He found us 2 local guys who would accompany her to and from work. Intelligence spotted a gathering of militants in the mountains west of the city. We went out in helicopters, and the Marines went there in Humvees and Bradleys. We knew the enemy was tracking the Marine column, but had no idea what the Green Berets were up to. The Marines arrived at the foot of the enemy fortifications and immediately deployed mortars. They began shelling enemy positions and surrounded the camp. However, the back passage, so to speak, was left open. The militants exchanged fire with the Marines and the arriving Ethiopian paratroopers. They held out, but gradually retreated into the foothills behind, and we entered through this back door. It's not called the extermination zone for nothing. We deployed to block the enemy's escape routes and took up positions on the right flank to catch them in the crossfire. We waited. The Marines and Ethiopians drove them into a trap, and then we opened fire. It was far from beautiful, because war is never beautiful. They didn't even know we were there. This lasted about 7 minutes, and the enemy surrendered. Of the approximately 250 militants, 32 surrendered. We went inside and took the others. We conducted reconnaissance and collected a lot of documents. And then I came across the laptop they were trying to destroy. They didn't do it very well. I took out the battery and stuffed the laptop into my backpack. When we returned to base, Army intelligence and the CIA immediately swung into action. They downloaded all the files from the computer, then took out the battery again, and then the hard drive itself, and sent everything to Langley. I was lucky enough to be present at the decoding of the documents. They contained plans for future attacks on the Ethiopian government and allied forces in the country. In particular, there was a plot to kidnap the ambassador's wife and family, and my family. I panicked and immediately contacted our guys who were watching Ami. I warned them to be on alert. According to intelligence, the enemy might strike. They replied that they were ready. I was just finishing up the paperwork when the alarm sounded. There's a threat brewing somewhere. I rushed to the briefing room. The CIA liaison outlined the situation. They intercepted ISIS radio signals transmitted by Boko Haram. The terrorists were about to attack the embassy. Boko Haram were to attack several ministers and their families. They wanted to make it a personal matter. Colonel Singleton addressed the Green Berets. The Marines will guard the ambassador and his family, and also ensure the security of the embassy. Major Linger will take able company and go to defend the residence of the Minister of Finance, supporting the Ethiopian infantry. Captain Fersain will lead Baker Company and take up positions near the house of the Minister of Health. The colonel looked up and smiled at Donald. It's nothing like an incentive, he thought. Captain Groton will take Charlie Company and occupy the airport in case we need to evacuate. Aviation will provide support as needed. Questions? No one asked a word, and the soldiers went to their units. An armored column advanced through the city. It was about noon. Donald tried to call Ami, but was unsuccessful, only voicemail. He knew that she was supposed to pick up the children and take them to their parents after her shift, but by his calculations, she should have been there already. He tried to push away the bad thoughts and focus on the task. They arrived at his father-in-law's place and set up a defensive perimeter. Soon the minister himself arrived with his guards, and they replaced the Green Berets in key positions. Ami's father approached Donald and immediately noticed his tension. He knew it wasn't just the coming attack. Professor Kasheim asked, "Have you heard from her?" "No, sir," Donald replied, looking down the street. His thoughts were far away and his eyes filled with tears. "And I can't go looking for her, sir. Damn it, how I want this. His father-in-law looked at him intently. She's a good person. God will protect them. And your son and mother, they're safe. He smiled at Donald. Dad, he's only 5 years old. He is his father's son. I'm confident in him. Besides, the children are with their mother. The lioness of Ethiopia leads them. He smiled and put his hand on Donald's shoulder. You are a man and a soldier. Do your job as always. God will take care of them. At this moment, the radio came to life. Captain, activity is around the corner, north of the complex. There are at least 4 cars, and there is a shootout. Davis, who had just been promoted to sergeant, ran up to the minister. Sir, you better come inside. Thank you, Sergeant. Me and my people will cover you. I'm not yet so old that I can't pull my weight. He grinned. Yes, and my wife will look at me with a different look after this. After she expresses everything, as the Americans say. I patted him on the shoulder and turned to the sergeant. Deploy the strike group and prepare the low. Sergeant Davis looked me in the eye. Don't worry, sir, they'll be fine. He saluted and began to give orders. The Green Berets took up positions, fortifying themselves in pre-prepared redoubts. 2 M60 machine gun emplacements were set up, blocking the street. We had just settled in when 3 cars screeched around the corner and headed straight for our complex. The leading car is a white Mercedes, our white Mercedes. He was riding on 2 whole tires and 2 torn to shreds. Pieces of rubber were falling from the right wheels and sparks were flying. He was followed by 2 pickup trucks with .50 caliber machine guns mounted in the back, which tried to stop the vehicle. As they raced down the street, the Mercedes smoked and shuddered from the impacts. And behind the wheel, maneuvering and bouncing on potholes, sat my amazing wife. Show the pickups, I yelled. Both M60s opened fire, and the first one and then the second truck turned into a pile of scrap metal. The fighters and I rushed forward, and the surviving opponents very quickly ceased to be survivors. Suddenly, a huge Dodge dump truck appeared around the corner. The armored body carried at least 8 people and 2 more .50 caliber machine guns. I dropped to one knee as Ami managed to pass me before her Mercedes completely stalled. One of her guards limped out of the car, clutching his left hand, but still firing his R-15 with his right. He opened the back door and pulled out his seriously wounded partner, after which they took cover under the hood of the car. Ami jumped out, pulled our children out of the back left door, and hurried towards the Green Berets, who were already waiting for them with open arms. In the meantime, I pulled the law atm off my shoulder, tore off the plugs from the front and rear parts, aimed at the engine compartment, and fired. The anti-tank shell headed towards its target, and the truck was no longer a problem. I rose to my feet and turned around to return to the fortifications. That's when I felt something sticky and warm spreading down the right side of the body armor. Oh crap, flashed through my head. I'll get a scolding again. The wound was a little more serious than the one I received when I saved Ami. When I got to the barricade, my daughter saw me. Dad, she screamed. Ami looked at me and her face turned pale. But my 5-year-old son reacted fastest. He escaped from the soldier's hands and rushed towards me. He ran up and grabbed my belt. Be careful, Dad. Then Ami came to me. She grabbed my weapon hand, raised her eyes, and I saw that tears were already shining in them. Staying true to my style, I grinned through the pain. Ah, how are you, Doc? I joked hoarsely. God bless. She almost collapsed, but instead she hugged me even tighter. And then she hit me on the shoulder with all her might. You stupid, stubborn idiot. Who were you trying to impress? I smiled. You. Always. Then my guys ran up and dragged me inside. The doctors attended to me, and it soon became clear that I would survive. My daughter never left my side, and my son was ready to defend the building to the last. He walked around the whole room and repeated to everyone he met, "This is my dad." The militants made several more tentative attacks, which is why we had to retreat a little and narrow the perimeter. Then they deployed Ethiopian paratroopers and even sent a combat helicopter, but by 7 in the evening the holiday was over. My wife forgave me, but only after I promised not to scold her for the broken car. My shoulder still hurts after her blow. My guys found a spare green beret, and my son instantly became everyone's favorite. We were evacuated to the hospital, they stitched up my wound, and then awarded me a second Purple Heart. I was also promoted to major and ordered to report to Southern Command in Doral, Florida. So now we're in the present tense. My grandmother passed away without ever seeing her great-grandchildren. Mom seems to have changed her attitude towards her children. I think it has to do with my sister getting involved with some Marine. It turned out that we were returning to our homeland just in time for the wedding. Her bastard husband cheated on her. He died in a car accident along with his mistress, who, ironically, was the wife of that same Marine. Celeste inherited his Mercedes-Benz car dealership and became close with a local mechanic, the unsuspecting husband of that same treacherous woman. She was pregnant with their first and only child, and doctors kept her alive so that the baby could be born. A boy was born. The guy seems decent. I was heading to the ambassador's office. He called me and told me not to say anything to the boss. So I didn't tell my wife anything. Having reached the embassy, I was immediately invited inside. The ambassador stood up, shook my hand, congratulated me on my promotion, and invited me to sit down. "Major, we will miss you, but you deserve it. You have served here for 12 years and made a huge contribution to the lives of the local people." I reported this to the Ministry of Defense and the Southern Command. I also talked to the State Department. They will follow your career. You are a good man, Major. Your country and your family are lucky to have you. I was stunned. "Thank you, sir. I'm flattered. I will try to justify your trust." He smiled. "If you get tired of military service, call. I think there is a place for you in the diplomatic corps. Thank you again, sir. Enjoy your vacation and say hi to your parents." He stood up and shook my hand again. So my family and I went to Ramstein Air Base, from where we flew to the United States. We changed our destination to Houston International Airport. The children were running all over the terminal, and the wife was clearly tense. After all, she was only in Paris and Greece. And now I was dragging her to the USA. Moreover, in Texas. 12 hours and 32 minutes in the air. By the time we get to Houston, my kids will be ready to hijack the plane. It turned out that Ami was more worried about meeting Celeste than about moving to the States. About 3 hours into the flight, she turned to me. "My dear, we need to talk." Crap. What have I done again? What happened, my love? Did I do something? Or, on the contrary, didn't? No, honey, it's about your sister. She looked into my eyes and sighed. What did Celeste say? Nothing, my love. In fact, this applies to me too. Okay, I can't stand it when she messes with my head like that. Just tell me what's wrong, baby. My strong, brave, beautiful wife suddenly sobbed and then burst into tears, burying her face in my chest. The children came and sat on our laps. It's good that we flew first class. People have already begun to notice her sadness. "Why is Mom crying, Dad?" My daughter was on the verge of tears. The son held his mother's hand and looked completely lost. "It's okay, guys. Mom is just a little sad because we left our grandparents. We will definitely make sure that Mom is happy again. And very soon, Grandmother Fatima and Grandfather Aaron will come to us in America." Ami raised her head, sobbed, and smiled at the children, hugging them. "That's not the point, my dear." I looked at her. "Baby, what's wrong?" She sobbed again and said, "You will become a father again, my dear. And we are going to your family, and your sister will find out. She will be in so much pain." I was stunned. Number 3. "Wow. When?" I asked. "I'm already 2 months old. You just can't control yourself, can you?" She smiled and sobbed again. "I don't want to hurt your sister. She already had so many difficulties." Ami didn't know the whole story. "Baby, we need to talk." She looked at me with bewilderment. I grinned that same smug smile that I rarely got to use with her, the one that appeared when I managed to outsmart her. "Celeste is in 7th heaven. She and Sean are getting married. We'll be just there for the celebration. We'll have a great time until I have to report to Special Operations Command in Florida. You might want to stay longer and have fun. I don't think anyone in Florida would want to kill me. I hope so, I thought. And she's crazy about her adopted son and future husband. She will be as happy for you as you are for her, and perhaps very soon she will have her own belly. Ami began to cry again. Then she burst into tears. She buried her head in my chest, squeezed me in her arms, and then raised her head and looked at me. We are so lucky to have each other and our children. You're right, honey. I am the happiest person in the world. After that, we all got comfortable and fell asleep. 6 hours into the flight, my 8-year-old daughter poked me in the side. What happened, princess? Your son wants to talk to you. What now? I looked at the other side of the cabin. My boy smiled at me and motioned for me to sit in the seat that his sister had just vacated. I carefully released my left hand, which was hugging my wife, and moved to my son. Hey, champion, what happened? Dad, can I talk? Of course, buddy. He has matured a lot since the attack. I missed the carefree kid he used to be, but I liked his new maturity too. He looked towards his mother, who was dozing peacefully, covered with a Lufthansa blanket. She snored, making that same little snore that appeared when she slept peacefully and happily. The kids used to make fun of her until Grandma told them that it was actually Mom talking to the angels about her family. She assured that all mothers do this when they are happy. The children thought it was magical. In a couple of years, this will just be a cute family story to tell your friends. But for now, they looked at their mother in awe when they heard that sound. My son looked at me and began. Dad, were you afraid when bad people were chasing us? I swallowed and replied, Damn it, son. I was scared shitless. I was expecting this conversation. The psychologist at the embassy said that he would talk about it himself when he was ready, and that in such cases, honesty is the best policy. His eyes became round. But Dad, you were so calm and cool. You just shot them. I looked at him. How I wish he was that 5-year-old boy who asked me why girls were so ugh. But it is as it is. Son, I was just doing my job. I don't like killing people. I never liked it. But my job is to protect your mother, you, your sister, and your grandparents. This is what had to be done. I was about to say my favorite John Wayne line, a man's gotta do what he's gotta do. But then I noticed that daughter number 1 had already joined our little bonfire. Dad, you saved our lives. We love you. But you almost died, she said. Okay, this is getting too serious. But I didn't die, did I? Princess, your mother and I talk about this all the time. This is my job. I always try to be careful. But I have a debt. When I was waiting for you at your grandparents', I was worried. I was scared. I was afraid that I would never see you again. I wanted to break away and go look for you. I told my grandfather that I felt helpless. He replied that God will look after you and I should just do my job. And he's not only your mom's grandfather, he's also a man, and he knows what that means. I looked at my children, grabbed them, and hugged them tightly. They fidgeted, but then gave in and hugged me back. And then they started sobbing. Returning home and completion. I know you don't understand everything yet, but you will. Just know that I will do everything in my power to be around as long as possible, I said, and then began to tickle them both. And I'll make your life unbearable. They laughed, and then, tired, fell asleep in my arms. 10.5 hours into the flight attendant came up to us and asked if we wanted to have breakfast. She said she needed help in the kitchen if the kids wanted to get involved. They immediately jumped up and looked at me. Just be careful, I said. They rushed forward and were soon helping with food. Their mother stretched and yawned like a graceful cat. She looked at me and smiled. Where are my children? And can we escape before they return? I laughed, stood up, and sat down next to her. I told her our conversation. She frowned slightly and looked at me. They are too young to be so old, she whispered. I squeezed her hand and kissed her forehead. They are our children. Soon all this will be just a memory. This will make them stronger, and we will be close, my love. The pilot contacted. Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our descent into Texas airspace and expect to arrive in Houston in approximately 2.5 hours. Thank you. My daughter brought a cup of tea for her mother, and my son brought coffee for me. The flight attendant brought coffee muffins and sat down with us for a minute. Major, you and your wife have amazing children, she said, turning to Ami. They told me what happened, doctor, and I am delighted. They also bragged about your driving skills and how your husband shot down the bad guys, so they said. She smiled, stood up, took Ami's hand, and added, "You both have something to be proud of." Then, looking at Ami with a sly smile, she said, "And congratulations on the third." She looked at me with a seductive grin. "Lucky girl," she whispered to Ami. I barely heard it. She turned around and, swaying her hips, headed towards the kitchen. Ami followed her with her gaze, as did I. Then she caught my eye and immediately slapped me on the arm. "Behave yourself," she whispered. I made an innocent face. "Who, me?" She giggled and shook her head. We filled out customs declarations and got ourselves in order. The pilot got in touch again and asked everyone to take their seats. The huge 747 broke through the clouds, hydraulics and flaps creaked, engine thrust decreased, and the landing gear extended. Our children were jumping up and down and pointing out the windows. "Dad, look here. Oh, what is this?" The ground appeared below as the plane banked to the right, then leveled off and gently touched down on the runway. There was a slight creaking sound, then a roar of reverse, and the plane slowed down, turned onto the taxiway, and headed towards the terminal. The huge Lufthansa plane approached Terminal E, and the engines stopped. "Children, welcome to Texas," I announced. The usual bustle immediately began. Passengers crowded at the exit, hurrying to leave the plane. We waited until first class was empty, then we stood up, grabbed our carry-on luggage, and headed out. As soon as we left, we were greeted by a small crowd. But the main thing is a huge, homemade banner. "Welcome home, Donald and Ami, Ami and Donald." Below him stood 6 delighted people: Celeste, Sean, little Sean, Donald Sr., Samantha, and Grandpa Hugh. They squealed, screamed, cried, and clapped their hands. Ami froze, her mouth opening and closing. Then she stepped forward and immediately found herself in Celeste's arms. They kissed each other on the cheeks, hugged each other, and cried. "You're pregnant," Celeste said. Ami's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "You're glowing." And Donald grins. "What do you think?" "I'm 2 months old. Donald just found out." She leaned towards her and whispered, "He's terribly smug." Brightened the sky. "I'm 2 months old too, but only Sean knows. So don't give me away." Ami smiled and hugged her again. "You are the sister I never had. I love you and am very happy for you." She then turned and took Sean's hands. "You must be Sean. I've heard so much about you. It's very nice to meet you. You make Celeste happy." She paused. "Very happy." Sean blinked, Celeste grinned, and Ami smiled at him. "Oh, great, another psychic," Sean thought. Ami knelt down in front of the smallest member of the family. "Your mother told me about you. I think I already know you. I'm very glad to meet you." Little Sean looked at her seriously. "Mom said that you are good. You really are good, and also beautiful. I'm very pleased to meet you." He extended his hand, but Ami only smiled, hugged him tightly, and kissed him on the cheek. He blushed. Meanwhile, Donald watched as his children ran into the arms of their grandparents and cousin. He turned his gaze to his sister's future husband. She glowed next to him. Then he noticed a change in his mother. It's as if she became human again, he thought. And his father. He beamed with happiness. Every now and then he hugged his wife, touched her shoulder, hand, and maybe even her ass. Wow, Dad, everything has changed. And all because of this guy and his son. He glanced at Sean. "So you're Sean," he said in an even voice. Sean nodded. "Major, I'm very glad to meet you." It became quiet around. Everyone was watching them. Little Donald approached his father. "This is my dad," he said, looking at Sean. "He's a Green Beret. He saved our lives." Little Sean came closer too. "And this is my dad," he pointed to Sean. "He's a Marine." They looked at each other. "My dad has many friends among the Marines. They helped him protect us. He was also wounded." "Wow," said little Sean. They immediately started chatting as if they had been friends all their lives. Donald grinned at Sean. "I think we'll leave them," Ami said. Celeste smiled. "Undoubtedly. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. 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 Click to the next one.